Welcome to the Great IO Get-Together. On tonight's show, quips and queries about the world of work as IO psychology comes alive. Now please welcome our hosts, Richard and Tara. Thank you so much, Sherry. Welcome everyone to Great IO Get-Together number 18, IO Team Tussle with the Avery Lab and Bisbey Lab. My name is Richard. This is my co-host, Tara. Thank you so much for joining us. If you'd like to be in the loop for the next show, make sure to click subscribe, notification bell below the video, join the show's Discord, join our email notification list. You can find details about all of that on the website, thegig.online. All of our regular shows, and this one is no exception, have two halves. In the first half, we have a little fun. Second half, we get a little more serious, all with our guests of the day. So today, we are setting a gig record for guest count. Joining us today are members from two research labs. On the left, hailing from the University of Houston's College of Business, Team Avery, featuring CT Bauer Chair of Inclusive Leadership, Dr. Derek Avery, and two of his graduate students, Larissa Garcia and Horatio Traylor. So welcome, Team Avery. On the right, hailing from the George Washington University's Department of Organizational Sciences and Communications, we have Team Bisbey, featuring Assistant Professor Dr. Tiffany Bisbey and two of her graduate students, Anthony Ferroni and Maddie Romero. Welcome, Team Bisbey. That is the dramatic difference in response. We'll see how that plays out. Today's game is called Team Tussle. So this game is suspiciously similar to, but legally distinct from what you might refer to as Family Feud. We have scoured the internet to find empirical data on important opinions that matter to IO psychologists. And we're going to be asking members of each team to guess the 10 most popular answers to two questions. So each team is going to keep guessing until they get 3 misses or they get all the answers right. If they get 3 misses, then the other team has the chance to steal by guessing one additional correct answer from the 10 that they didn't guess. So whoever has more points at the end wins, and we might have a tiebreaker round if we need it. So before the show, we tossed a coin to determine who goes first, or who gets the pick, actually, and Team Bisbey won. So that means that you get the choice of choosing whether you go first or last. So Team Bisbey, what do you want to do?
We're going to play.
Oh, going to play. Excellent. All right, so we will go ahead and get started. So I'm going to ask the question, and we will start with Tiffany on the left there with the first answer. So here's the question. This last May, we had the 2022 PSYOP Annual Conference in Seattle. Although not exclusively in person, this was our big return to in-person conferencing in the wake of the pandemic. So one thing that happens after the annual conference is that a survey goes out asking for reactions. So the first question is about that survey. So according to the 2022 survey of conference attendees, if you had to pick one word to describe the conference, what word would you pick? So we're looking for the top 10 answers. Go for it. What is your guess?
Let's see. For me, the conference was very awkward because it was our first time really getting together. I'm not sure if other people felt that way, but I guess it's the most authentic answer. So I'm going to go with awkward.
I'm sorry, but that is not in the top 10. So that's the first strike. I don't have a loud buzzer. I can just say, no.
Oh.
No.
We had a discussion of having a big plastic fuzzy guy, but yeah, it didn't happen.
We did not. No.
Awkward is an interesting answer. So, what?
I'm sure that was answer number 11.
Was it just meeting people, or just did you forget how to conference? That was kind of my experience.
A conference is a big part of it. I think that we're used to getting in these kind of, in our Zoom world, there's not so much small talk. It sort of just gets straight to the meeting. And now we're meeting these people that we haven't seen in 2 years. And remember, wait, how do I start this conversation? And that happened to me a lot. So, afterwards I had to talk to a lot of people. Hey, sorry about that really weird interaction. Here's what I meant to say.
Get a do-over? That's amazing.
Yeah, a do-over.
All right, we're already at 1 strike, 0 out of 10. Let's get guess number 2.
All right, I think it's my turn. So I'm going to say insightful. It was my first in-person PSYOP, and I was able to come into this awesome community where there was, it was amazing. It was an amazing experience, but there were so many people with such great experience and research and conversations that I just really got a lot of insight out of it. So that's one word that I would describe the conference. So something similar.
I'm going to say that's close enough. So one of the answers is educational. I'm going to say that is not a strike. What's the opposite of a strike?
A ball?
Correct.
Correct. Yes. Correct. Great job.
Next.
Nice.
I'm gonna add PSYOP, but from what I gather from just listening and thinking about the transition from virtual back to in person, I would have to say people indicate it'd be an adjustment getting back to that in person feeling after being remote for so long.
Adjustment. I think that's a strike. That's a strike. I think completely valid observation, but not in the top 10. Possible that the survey people were just lying. They were trying to put on a good face.
That's all right. Anthony gets a pass because he's a first-year student, so he hasn't been to PSYOP before.
You've heard a lot of discussion mostly about name tags so far. That's the most important part. Yeah.
I guess it's my turn again. Is social different from that? Yeah. I think that people probably felt that it was more social. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Social.
I'm thinking
I'm gonna say
networking.
Yes, I'm going to say yes. That is close enough to engaging, which is the number two answer.
Exactly.
Might be some liberties there. Yeah.
I mean, what is a word, really?
That's a great observation in the middle of a word game. That's perfect.
All right, Maddie, back to you.
Save us, Maddie.
I think I'm going to say exciting. A lot of people together that are passionate about the same things. And kind of along what I already shared, I would say that people probably found it exciting to be around, everything. So that's what I'm going with.
Exciting is the number 5 answer. Well done.
Yeah.
I would have to then say, just thinking how it's just an event where people from all over the field can get together and share their ideas on what's currently going on in the industry, be very informative. I think we'll say it's informative.
Informative is the number 1 answer.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh man.
All right.
Now it's on me. Let's see. What do we? So I feel like informative really, really touches on the whole point of the thing. Engaging. I'm gonna go with. Let's see, Maddie. You seem like you have something
No, I
you're
don't.
thinking of. You don't? Well, I'll just buy us some more time. Let's see. I'm actually at a loss. What is fun? Is fun an option? I'll go with fun because that's really what it's all about, right? Getting together with the people you haven't seen in, since grad school. It's really our family. It's like our reunion. So I'm gonna go with fun.
Well, I'm happy to tell you that fun is the number 6 answer. So we've just got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 answers left, Maddie.
Yeah, this is halfway on the board so far. If you're following at home, informative, engaging, exciting, fun, and educational so far.
I'm running out of adjectives, I'll say.
Oh man, I might be out. Just getting flashbacks to being up there in the Northwest. Such a great experience. I think this is hard.
I know.
All right. Kind of follows in line with some of the other words that have been taken, but what's coming to mind is like intellectual. Yeah, I'm just gonna say that.
That's a strike.
Yeah.
Oh.
Strike.
That's all I had left.
Excellent showing, though. Excellent showing for Team Bisbey.
All right, we have the opportunity for a steal. There are 5 words left on this list. You can confer as much as you like, but we need an answer.
Should we do that? Let's do that.
Oh, that's good.
I was thinking intimidating. I mean,
We should do comps
that's-
this way for graduate
I-
school.
I don't know if that would be like top 10, but probably was intimidating.
Yours is such an IO answer. I mean,
You
I've
said
seen
motivating?
you said motivating.
It was.
That's a
That's
good
a
one.
good one.
Oh, wait, should it be? That's okay. We'll help.
We got some inspiring by our competitors.
I mean, that's always been the way that, you're supposed to feel after you leave PsyOps. So if that's, I think that would have to be in the top 10, right? You feel good about that?
Yes.
All right. I mean, I'm going to feel like a complete jackass if,
No, I love
the other two. We're going to go with motivating.
Motivating. All right. I'm going to say that's close enough to the number 3 answer, which is energizing.
that's
So well done.
That's great. Congratulations.
So a fun observation. Nobody guessed any negative words, and yet there is one on the list. So top 10, top down: informative, engaging, energizing, inspiring, exciting, fun, disappointing, educational, interesting, overwhelming.
Overwhelming.
Yeah.
those are not like these.
Good job though on this. This is a tough task. Although I think
We'll
you
get-
picked right, Bisbey.
We'll get to that. Yeah. So yeah, I am curious. Why no one had any negative guesses? Was PsyOp universally popular and a great experience here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our ratios.
Yeah, I
suggested
said
negative.
when we were discussing the steel, I
Mm.
said intimidating because I feel like
Mhm.
for some, especially probably like first year graduate students, it's their first big conference. Kind of feel like overwhelming, intimidating, and kind of fall in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
I was also thinking busy, but in the sense of like overwhelming, like there's just so much to do, I don't know where to go. But I'm trying to stay positive.
But it's like too much of a good thing can be really a lot. I know plenty of people who have to sneak up to their hotel and take a nap in the middle of the day because they've just spent so much energy processing everything that's going on. So that's very understandable.
Mm-hmm. There, one of the most common complaints I hear is that there's too many things in like a single, this from a program chair kind of role, too many things in a single time slot that people want to go to like more than one thing. And then there's other slots where there's nothing. So they're like, too much to choose in this like 30-minute band. I don't know. There's a sort of sense of lost opportunity that really gets to people in these situations. Like you want to make the most of it, right? And the pressure to make the most of it can be a lot for folks. All right.
That's true. Well, it's a significant investment of time and energy, and so you don't want to come away thinking that you only went to 2 sessions. Although, for my money, I think it's much better to spend time really engaging with a few ideas, a few new people, and leave with a few high quality things. Quality over quantity is what I say. Except when it comes to gig guests, of course.
Yeah, I think the other thing related to that is that people tend to look at the program as though it were designed with them in mind, right? Without considering all of the constraints that the program committee, has to work through. And so they're like, well, why are all the things that I want to go to at the same time? And it's like, yeah, there's a lot going into that. And it's not just someone sitting back trying to figure out how much they can frustrate you.
It's like the most complicated logic problem on earth. Yeah.
Well, I will say, speaking of frustrating people, let's move to question 2.
Wait.
How is that for a segue? So question
Great. Excellent.
question 2 might be a little harder. Let's find out. ONET, as you all know, is an online resource maintained by the U.S. Department of Labor. Tracks a lot of information about jobs in the United States. Part of that effort, you have job analysts, people whose job is to analyze jobs, rating occupations, and KSAOs on a lot of different dimensions. With that background, leads me to our question. On ONET, what are the 10 most important skills across the entire U.S. economy? Go.
So first off, that's a much harder question.
I feel like it's easier.
But I think I'm going to say communication. I feel like across disciplines, that's one thing that's pretty much universal. I know academics tend to work alone sometimes, but we also are very collaborative. So I think I'm going to say communication.
Yep, I'm going to say that is the number 2 answer, speaking, communication.
Nice. On the board already.
Strong start.
All right. Well, I'm going to say this one because it's going to really pain me if it's not there, and that's analytical.
Analytical. I don't know about that.
Might need to be more specific.
Yeah, oh, okay, yeah. Can you elaborate?
That is literally my biggest shortcoming, is an inability to elaborate. So
Yeah, I don't think elaboration's on the top 10 this year.
Okay, so I'll scrap that one and go with decision making.
Judgment and decision making is the number 6 answer. Nice.
I'm gonna take the hint that I was hoping that you were giving, Derek, and say data analysis.
Data analysis. No, I don't think that's it. Nope. Strike one. It should be, though. I fully agree with you.
I'm going to say something that I think Derek was getting at with analysis and say problem solving.
Number 7 answer, complex problem solving. Nice.
On a roll.
Take my place.
It's hard because, there are a lot of kinds of jobs. And it's hard to keep all of them in mind when we're thinking about this. But so far, very strong.
So I'm trying to figure out what the adjective is for emotional labor, given that we're in a service economy. So friendliness?
Or empathy, something like that. I think I'm going to say that is the number 9 answer, social perceptiveness. Guys are doing an excellent job here.
May I have back and forth with my teammates?
Really, the rules.
That was a little like Dickensian. Like, may I have some more, please?
You got this.
You're distracting me.
No pressure.
I got the steal though.
You only have 1 strike so far, so there's no consequences to a wrong guess.
But I was that first strike.
Oh.
I had already forgotten that, so you know.
What did you say the first one?
Communication.
Yeah, current correct answers: speaking, judgment and decision making, complex problem solving, social perceptiveness.
Like teamwork or like collaboration be on there?
I'm going to say yes. That's coordination, which is the number 10 answer. Nice job.
Halfway.
What is something that you need for pretty much every job? What about resilience?
As much as I agree with you, that is not on the list of the top 10. Second strike.
Yeah, they don't care about us.
Okay. Creativity and innovation.
Nope. Nope. That is the third strike. Sorry, Team Avery.
Yeah. Same score as Team Bisbey had. We have 5 answers. Oh no, Bisbey had 6. Oh. There's five opportunities to steal now. Close game.
I'm
Let
thinking,
the plate half full.
That's what you-
well, own it. It has to be something that's like common across jobs, right? Because they're using the same scale or whatever. And you guys just use ONET for your training project,
dear.
and you saw some of the things that were on there that might be common. I'm thinking like,
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, definitely.
time.
Insider knowledge here.
Yeah.
I was going to say teamwork before that one was taken, obviously.
Yeah.
So conflict management.
That's what. Yeah. Those are
So
all
which
in
one
my
do you
brain.
think is most common? What came up for your project? Interpersonal skills.
I was nervous that that might overlap with
Mhm,
communication
mhm.
one that they already said.
Okay.
Or the speaking. It was speaking. So that's why, because
Does
they broke it
speaking
down.
include listening?
No. It does not.
Is it a-
I think
All right.
speaking and listening both go into communication, and that is most important across all jobs.
Was communication already mentioned though, right?
Well, speaking is covered.
Yeah, because when he was elaborating, he was talking about talking.
Let's go with listening then.
What do you think, Anthony?
Let's do it. Listening.
Wow. Listening happens to be the number one answer. Great job.
Did it. A lot about social
so
skills. Everything.
disappointing.
Everything's social skill, right?
It's
Communication.
So yeah, the full list, which starts with active listening, then we have speaking, critical thinking, reading comprehension, monitoring, judgment and decision making, complex problem solving, writing, social perceptiveness, coordination. That's top 10.
Not a single technical skill, and that's great for our work.
Well, it's like you just said, this is something that everybody has to do, right? No matter what job you are doing,
Mhm.
you need these skills. And yet, look at the things that we cover in K-12 education, right? Almost none of these.
Yeah.
So, what's the score, Richard?
Uh,
Or am I supposed to know that?
it seems to be 1-1. That's yeah. So that
So we
that
need our tiebreaker.
we have a tiebreaker round. We're gonna have to tiebreak it. Yeah. So this one you can confer individually, and as long as you don't have the same answer, we're all good. It's closest guess to the correct answer to this question. How many total psychology master's and doctoral programs are there in the United States, according to the SIOP graduate program list? And I had better not see any cell phones come out.
No Googling, yes.
You know this, right?
And this is not Wheel of Fortune rules. Whoever's closest over or under.
Mm-hmm.
At
Did you
master's.
say masters and doctoral?
Masters
Yep.
and doctoral.
And so if a university has both, we count it as 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All of them, all of them.
Okay, so like ours would count as two.
One.
I really.
You have 5 seconds.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not really true. I just,
There's
you know,
no
like
5,
to
no.
create dramatic.
Do you want to go number one there?
I'd be inclined to say.
Yeah.
I want to hear what they have to say. Who goes first?
Like how those professors.
We should have done like a you have to write it on paper and show at the same time approach.
Oh,
I
I trust them though.
Yeah.
I trust them.
That would have been more dramatic, since I don't know how many more 5-second deadlines you're going to give them at this point. But
Just one more.
okay,
5
great.
seconds.
Yeah, especially this.
This feels like one of those Google interview questions, like how much would you charge to wash all the windows in New York City? Right? Like, it's really about how you got to the answer. But in this case, it is not. We want to know what the answer is. It's about the answer.
It's like business.
Yeah, this is about winning. And if you,
Right.
yeah.
You're gonna have to cut us off. We're gonna keep doing it.
All right. We want an answer from Team Avery first.
220.
Okay, 220.
220.
Team Bisbey.
Wait. It's the one that's closest, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna
Don't use anchoring bias now, just because they said 220.
Do we go go with the same thing?
No,
Wait.
say whatever number you want. I'm saying just don't pay attention to their guess with your guess.
Oh, right. Maddie, I'm gonna let you go.
No.
Yes, do it. Say it.
Okay, the scoring works based
You
on.
got it. You have to go with the same thing that we've done.
All right, we're gonna go with 80.
80?
All right.
80.
Those are your final answers. 220 and 80.
Yeah.
And the actual answer is 195.
Oh, we were closer the first time.
But wait,
It's
if we average your two answers together, do we get the right answer? Wisdom of the crowds here? No, we do not. We need more crowds. But that means that Team Avery is the winner of the tiebreaker and winner of the game.
So,
Yeah.
That was a really close game.
It's close.
Well done.
Danielle
Well
Biden.
done. Do you have any words of wisdom for the audience on your win?
people flipped their-
It's harder than I thought it would be.
That's what we're going for.
So a fun part of this exercise is we actually get to see kind of the interaction between within your labs, which is actually quite different in a lot of really interesting ways. And we'll talk a little bit more about that after the break. So we'll come back for some discussion about lab dynamics and all sorts of fun stuff in just a few minutes. See you then. And we're back. So in this second half, we are going to be asking our lab team guests a handful of questions about labs and what labs are and where they came from. So why don't we start by actually talking about that word? So when we say the word lab, some viewers might imagine like a basement lab, men in white coats, people mixing reagents and beakers and such. I don't think that's what I mean by lab. It's probably not what you folks mean of lab either. But I would like to know. So maybe Maddie, why don't we start with you? What do you think of? What does the word lab mean to you?
Yeah, of course. Doesn't really involve chemicals for us, at least. But I think kind of the phrase that comes to mind when we talk about like our research labs is like a familial think tank. I think I've actually been able to be a part of a couple labs here at GW, but generally speaking, like it's a group of people that intellectually are talking about and solving problems, whether that be in research or in practice. We're constantly having these conversations about different topics. And I say familial in that they're kind of like we're like, the students are kind of like siblings in some ways, not really like the fighting kind, but like, like informal mentorships and also friends. And then the advisor being, I guess, a parental figure in that. That's just how I'm kind of thinking about it in terms of like providing guidance and having more expertise. So that's kind of how I picture lab.
Oh. I'm curious if that's the same reaction on Team Avery side. Maybe Horatio, do you have thoughts on your definition?
Yeah, I would say it's quite similar to that. I also come from a lab background in my undergraduate program when I was in psychology, but now being in a business school and having the opportunity to be in the lab was really crucial to my development. Not only having other collaborators as other PhD students, but having more than one faculty mentor and kind of getting insight from multiple perspectives and people at different stages of their career. I really think of it, honestly, more as a family than anything else. I think about the lab space in terms of the people and not necessarily the physical space, right? So we get together to answer these really interesting questions, but we also just talk about life, talk about professional development, careers, things of that nature that we probably wouldn't be able to get from just having maybe our cohort members or just having maybe your faculty advisor. You get these different perspectives and people combined from different backgrounds. Some have been in practice and before coming to academia now. Some came straight from undergrad like me. Some worked in a research lab like Ladisa. So I think it's just like this coalescence of a lot of individual and interesting backgrounds combine together to answer interesting questions.
Mm. It's I'm intrigued. I'm interested in your previous lab experience a little bit, because the differences between labs can sometimes be really stark. So were you in an undergrad psych lab then, or what? Yeah. So how is that? Do you feel that's very different than what you're doing now, or more or less the same?
I would say it's pretty different. And
Mm.
that's because, so I was an undergrad, and as of right now, we don't have any actual undergrads in our lab here. It's kind of more of like a Derek and Enrica thing, where we have our own individual lab and we work together with other PhD students. So everyone in our lab is at the doctoral level at least, right? So I think that's very different. But it's also similar in a way where, so me being a second year now, as the first year's transition in, it's more similar to the way the PhD students were mentoring me when I was an undergrad, right? So it's still that kind of lineage, it's still that kind of collaborative nature, and it's still that mentoring process. I find it to be fulfilling in the same and different ways at the same time.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me and maybe to viewers as to how labs come about. So there are many different models, right? And we haven't even heard any examples of what's kind of the more common European model, which is almost like an apprenticeship, very close one-on-one sort of mentoring model. So maybe why don't we turn to Tiffany, because you have recently kind of done this grad student faculty transition and had to work through some of these decisions about how to make a lab to go from being part of one to leading one. So what has that transition been like? How have you made decisions about creating your lab? What inspired that? And maybe even just a brief summary of kind of your recent journey in relation to doing that.
Yeah, so it is a big transition. And it's not really something that you're taught in grad school, I guess. You get the chance to mentor undergrads, I guess, when you have research assistants, when you're lucky enough to have that. And the things that I've been exposed to is just like, an N of one experience. So there's tons of different ways. I don't know which way is the best way or not. So I could be driving us all off a cliff, and I don't know if we're doing if how it's going to land. We're doing it. So, and also I come from a very privileged position as a grad student at Rice University, where there are resources just abound, and where my advisor was like a powerhouse and had all these things in place where I could just, go there and there's work and I could do it. And, and it's not here. I'm going to have to work for that myself, right? I need to find the resources and see the lay of the land and figure out, kind of make these choices more intentionally so that I can create that system that worked for him. Because, there we're working on, we had like multiple multi-million-dollar grants that we're all working on. And I can't just do that here. I can't apply for who's going to do all the work, right? So, I mean, for me, my approach to it, first of all, it was very overwhelming. So my approach to it was just trying to get all the students' interest. Luckily, I'm teaching a class with all the PhD students, so I tell them to come to lab and see what we've got going on, see what everyone's interests are, and then I presented them with all of my ongoing projects. And now we're kind of sort of moving towards like starting new projects based on like a combination of both of our interests. And we always, every time I collect it, I always collect more than is needed. I have a bunch of qualitative data that I haven't really done anything with yet, but I have big ideas for. So I present that stuff to them and I see who's taking the initiative and who, like, what happens when I assign them something, how are they working? And I'm doing a lot of observing and seeing where I need to push and pull different levers to keep projects going, right? So I guess that's my approach, is observing and learning for a little bit and seeing, learning about them is also helping me learn about myself and what needs to be done. It's actually not unlike parenting. So I'm glad you brought that up.
So the process of kind of feeling it out is really interesting. I'm curious. I don't know how willing they'll be to answer this, but maybe Anthony. So you've seen this from the student side. Is that struggle like evident to you, or are you just kind of like, decisions are getting made in lab and that's what happens? Or are you an active participant in that? Like, how do you feel?
don't feel as though the struggle of that of getting your feet off the ground being evident, but I think it's definitely helpful for me being a first year student in seeing how the lab is starting and how we're getting our footing, from gauging interest in ongoing projects. It's really helpful because it's not like projects being forced on you. Say, oh, here's what we're working on. Would you be interested in working on this? And then typically getting paired up with a more senior student to help kind of lead it, because I have yet to lead the projects. I don't know the process behind that yet fully. So that's helpful. And also, I believe I think we told you like our research interests. So if there's anything in the future that you might have an idea of working on, we can kind of incorporate our ideas into or our interests. So I think it's definitely it supports a learning environment as a PhD student. Me being a first year trying to get a gauge of where I want to explore in the field. So I think it's very helpful being at the start of the labs. I feel like I'm not in the middle of something. I'm where it's starting.
Yeah. Something else that I didn't mention is that there's a real entrepreneurial aspect to it all. And those are the skills that we don't really get in our program, at least not directly. So you kind of pick up on it. But, if you're an entrepreneur, you usually have a business plan and like a model in place that you're going to put forth. And I wish that I had that. I did not, kind of just learning as we go. But
it's a really kind of weird place we've landed in academic settings now, where I've heard that metaphor a lot, that it's almost like you're running a small business within a university. You have to find resources and figure out where you're going to have expenses on and try to balance all that out versus everybody's individual goals within the lab. Yeah, it's definitely a tricky problem. I also like to follow up maybe a little on Anthony's comments about starting. So, I think the experience of being in a lab when it starts is very different. And I know my old first year students, they're now all out, graduated by now, but their experience was very different than the cohorts that came close after them. Because I was exploring, what it meant to be faculty at the time. And something I don't think I quite understood at the time was that graduate students generally are just accept whatever you're doing because they're tied to you and don't necessarily question like, wait a minute, why are all these decisions this way? It's much more often to say, I joined this club, and it is kind of almost a I don't want to keep saying parental, but it is a little bit of that, where it's just, you're the responsible party and they're looking to you for leadership, and stepping into that can be difficult. So let me actually turn that over to Derek then a little bit. I'm curious if your reactions and your experience was similar to mine in that regard, in that things now, are they different than they used to be? Do you, when you started, was your approach to creating and running a lab, when it was in that transition phase, did you have similar experiences as Tiffany did? And how have things evolved since then? And maybe for some scope with viewers, maybe a little sense of how long you've been doing this would also be helpful.
Sure. So this is my third year back at the University of Houston, but this time I'm in the business school. Last time I was in psychology. So I spent 3 years previously at the University of Houston, where I had a lab in the psych department. And that was a very different experience, because when I set foot on campus, I inherited students across the spectrum, right? So I had first years, I had second years, I had a fifth year, right? So I think at any given point in time, I had probably 7 to 10 students in the doctoral program who were engaged with projects in my lab. And that infrastructure made things a lot easier in terms of delegation, because I had senior level students that I could say, okay, here's how I want you to do this, now go. One of the things that I've really wrestled with being back at the University of Houston is we started our lab from scratch. So in addition to it being different in that way, I was also sharing a lab with Enrica Ruggs. So, we said, hey, let's do this together. It'll be a lot more fun that way. The students will have more access to different opportunities as well as faculty. So we were emulating, kind of the model that Mickey Hebel and Eden King have at Rice. But the tricky part about starting with first years is that as much as I wanted to empower them, I also had to balance that with where they were from a developmental perspective. And so that has been challenging, right? Because I'm saying, okay, I want to give you everything. I want to support you to do what you want to do. And they're like, we don't know what we want to do yet because you haven't taught us how to. So that has been one of the biggest challenges, is figuring out, where to land that. And I think that my perspective is just different. So when I had that lab previously, it was 2007, piggybacking on Richard's question about giving sort of a historical perspective. To me, the biggest goal that I had for my lab was to get students fired up about research. And that was what I was trying to do. I wanted to get doctoral students fired up about research to potentially become academics, and I wanted to get undergraduates fired up about research to want to become doctoral students. And as much fun as we had, one of the things that I came to realize is that we produced a lot of quantity, but the quality wasn't quite where I wanted it to be. And so it was very developmental in that students learned how to do research and how to publish research. But within our space, one of the things that has happened from that point until now is the expectations for a higher percentage of your projects to land in top tier journals is really ratcheted up, right? So that competition for that contested terrain is a lot more intense now than it was. And what I've come to realize from being on search committees at multiple schools is the way in which people are evaluating productivity is much more. There's much more emphasis and concentration on, where are they publishing as opposed to are they publishing. And so I've tried to figure out, like, how do I still get them excited, and how do I empower them where I can while teaching them what they need to know while focusing on publishing in these top tier journals. And so figuring out where all of those concentric circles align, when in many instances those things are not as aligned as much as they are competing, that becomes the rub. That becomes the challenge. And then doing it with two people, right? It's not a single parent household, it's a dual parent household. And she's got her perspectives on how the kids should be raised, and I got mine, and we're all going back and forth. So it is a lot of fun, at least from my perspective. You'd have to ask the students whether or not they're having fun. But it is constantly evolving, in that if you ask me what we are as a lab, I got to ask, what day is it? It's Monday. So, okay, I can give you the Monday answer.
Well, you set me up for a follow-up question for Larissa. So has it been fun? What is your experience of that model? What is your experience of that model been?
Of course it's been fun. It definitely has been fun. I think first year for me, so I'm a second year, first year for me, and I'm sure for all of us, we were all getting into Houston that same year. So it was a big adjustment. I've enjoyed this year, the second year, a lot more, because we have two first years who we get to collaborate with and bounce ideas off of each other, but also I feel like there's just more like structure to the lab as well than we had our first year, which is kind of feeling things out, understanding how we all work individually and how we might work together. I think Derek and Rika did a great job getting a group of students together where we all share an office. So whenever we're in our office together, we're bouncing ideas off of each other, just trying to see how we can put some extra spins on research questions and maybe even just like some social support as well. That's been probably something that I underappreciate sometimes, but I've been noticing a little bit more. Like, I really appreciate that we have 4 students versus whenever it was just Horatio and I, was like, we only had each other. So we get a little bit more of that.
So, it's what strikes me about that answer is it's still, even though you're in a much more established lab, it still sounds like it's almost like job crafting. Like you're still finding your own way to kind of relate and construct your relationships within the lab. So it's still, I don't want to say up to you, but you have more, you still have a lot of control. It's not like everything is set when you walk in the door.
I would agree. I don't know. Because so we still have like our one-on-ones as well as our lab meetings as well. So we get to have a little more of our individual control and individual preferences in those one-on-ones, and then the labs, like we kind of get to put it in there, but it's still trying to see what works for the most amount of people versus what works just for one. But we need to exercise that control a little bit more in our one-on-ones.
Yeah. So an interesting kind of dimension, I think, that might not be obvious to some listeners is I think these are examples of like good strategies. Not everybody's lab experience is like this. It's suddenly striking me that we're not going to have any examples of what does this look like when it goes badly, because that's a very different kind of interrelationship that sometimes happens within labs. One of the most critical pieces of advice I think that we can give to grad students is try to figure out what kind of lab culture you're going into before you get into grad school, because it completely shapes your experience, both day to day and long term. So, in the interest of time, I think we might go ahead and move to my last question, which is, I would love to hear from both Tiffany and Derek your kind of best piece of advice. So, among recommendations for starting up a lab, what do you think is the most important thing you would tell someone striking out to try to make this transition from grad student to supervisor? I don't know. What would you say to that person looking for one piece of advice? And maybe let's start with Derek.
I think the one piece of advice that I would give, and this is just kind of consistent with what I do as a diversity researcher, is not come into it with preconceived notions that are inflexible and that are rigid. You've got to meet the students where they are, and they can be good things, they can be bad things, right? So sometimes you have a level of expectation, and your expectation may be too high, or your expectation may be too low. So I think that there has to be that flexibility to be able to adapt the plan kind of on the fly and say, hey, this is what we were gonna do, but now we're gonna change course because I see that you've got this and I didn't know that you had that, or I see that you're interested in this and I didn't know that you were going to be interested in that. So I think that you should certainly go into it with a plan, because not having a plan is never a good idea. But don't be so wed to that plan that you don't realize that plan is just not tenable with the folks that you have. So it's really about making sure that there's compatibility between what it is that you're intending to do and the folks that you have helping you to do it.
That almost sounds like a condemnation of a kind of an authoritarian style of leadership within a lab, that if you're the top of the food chain and dictating down, that's not a good idea for a lot of reasons.
Condemnation's strong, but that certainly would not be the approach that I would advocate.
Yeah, Tiffany, what's your advice?
Sure. On that same note, and like I said, I don't know if what I'm doing is working, but it seems to be going well so far. I spend a lot of time and effort developing psychological safety so that they feel like they're equal contributors, so that they can share their ideas, because that's kind of the benefit of that. We as professors, I guess, know the breadth of the field. We know kind of what's been done and what hasn't, and we can get caught up in like, oh no, let's not do that. This area's already been totally like washed out. We know enough about it. But we have to welcome the new perspectives of the new students, and I just think that having that sort of authoritarian, or like, I know what's best, take my direction and you just kind of trust the process, doesn't really serve us, at least from my perspective right now. And it also works out because we are in this place of less structure, we have an opportunity to grow their interests and sort of make our name in our lab and the areas like that they are equal contributors. Yeah.
Yeah.
And guess what? That actually wasn't where I was going until I answer. My real answer was going to be to draw on your network, because nobody does this alone, right? So ask people to sit in on their lab meetings, expose yourself to different ideas, different ways of running a lab. I mean, in my last lab, we didn't even have lab meetings. It just worked. And then in a lab I'd been in previously, it was multiple lab meetings every week. So we're somewhere in the middle right now.
Well, for what it's worth, and as a piece of unsolicited feedback, it almost sounds like you're following Derek's advice and kind of feeling things out and working out
Sure.
where you want to go. So great.
So I really connected with Derek's story and getting, especially like starting from a place where we're just trying to energize the students to participate. So right now my struggle is making sure that I follow through with that. Making sure that I'm not just getting them energized for nothing, like for what? So giving things that are actually exciting to work on and, helping them enjoy the process of the parts that aren't so enjoyable, because there are many in research.
Well, that's great. Well, I think we're running a little long, so we can cut it off there. Thank you all so much for participating today. Big group. I hope everybody got a chance to talk as much as you would like to talk. We're just so grateful that you were all able to come on, despite all of the various behind the scenes technical weirdness and loss of electricity and webcams dying and everything else that has acted as a barrier. So I'm glad you were all here. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right, that is it for gig number 18. If you enjoyed yourself today, be sure to watch out for our next show by subscribing, turning on your YouTube notifications, joining our email notification list, which you can find on the website. You can also chat with the gig community by joining our Discord. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time for another great IO Get Together. Bye.
Oh, the times were hard and the wages low. Lever, Johnny, lever. I guess it's time for us to go. And it's time for us to leave her. Lever, Johnny, lever. Oh, lever, Johnny, lever. For the voyage is done and the winds don't blow. And it's time for us to leave her.
That's it for another gig. To stay in touch, subscribe on YouTube, check out our website at thegig.online, join our LinkedIn group, sign up for our email notification list, and join our Discord. So many ways to connect. Thanks for joining us, and see you next time for another great IO Get Together.